Um, just let me check to make sure the staff is ready to go, and we will begin our countdown.
We are ready, Chairwoman Demings.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The subcommittees on emergency preparedness, recovery, and response, and intelligence and counterterrorism will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare the subcommittees in recess at any point. Good morning again, everyone. I want to thank Chairwoman Slotkin and Ranking Member Pfluger for joining Ranking Member Kamek and me for this important hearing. Thank you to our witnesses for joining us today to discuss how the dynamic terrorism threat landscape impacts the American Jewish community and the importance of federal support to make their communities more safe. As someone who spent nearly 3 decades in law enforcement, I was extremely troubled to see neo-Nazis shouting anti-Semitic slurs while parading through the streets of Central Florida. I am relieved that the individuals who viciously attacked a Jewish student have been charged with hate crimes, assault, and grand theft. For one of the group's leaders, this is the second time he has been charged with committing violent acts against innocent bystanders this year. These hateful and violent acts followed several incidents in which anti-Semitic flyers were left outside homes across Central Florida. We are joined today by Rabbi Konoval from Chabad of South Orlando, who I have been honored to join for many occasions, including joyful celebrations with his congregation. I appreciate, Rabbi, your leadership during these difficult events in our community and stand with you in rejecting anti-Semitic attacks on our neighbors, our friends, and in our communities. All of this comes at a time when, as we learned at last week's hearing, we are seeing fringe extremist ideologies being mainstreamed and violent ideologies from across the spectrum embrace anti-Semitism. Let me be clear. Anti-Semitism and targeted violence against religious institutions have no place in the United States of America. Today, 20 years after 9/11, the terrorism threat landscape is far more complex, with nonprofits such as religious institutions increasingly targeted by domestic and foreign terrorists. Last month, the nation collectively held its breath as congregants at Sabbath service in a Texas synagogue were held at gunpoint by terrorists. I commend the heroic actions of Rabbi Creighton Citron Walker, one of our witnesses here today, who grabbed a chair, hurled it at the gunman. In other words, Rabbi Charlie took matters into his own hands, allowing congregants to escape. During the Colleyville attack, Rabbi Charlie credited his quick actions to security training, funded in part by the Non-Security Grant Program. Under this program, at-risk religious institutions and other nonprofits receive support to implement protective measures. These grants are critically important for religious institutions, and they keep communities safe, which is more important now than ever. As the terrorism landscape has grown more complex and houses of worship are increasingly being targeted, the demand for this program has risen exponentially. To meet this demand, Congress has increased funding for non-security grant program. Even with the recent increases, we still see a growing need for organizations to access this funding. With the risk of attacks against faith-based communities, we must continue to invest and their security. Throughout my time in Congress, I have consistently advocated for increased funding for this critical program. I was pleased to support a $100 million increase in the Build Back Better Act last year, and last week joined my colleagues in calling for additional appropriations for the program for the next year. We have a great panel today, and I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about the challenges the American Jewish community faces and how Congress can do a better job to protect them. I'm not sure if the ranking member from my committee has joined us. Ms. Kamek, are you?
Yes,
It is now my pleasure to introduce the ranking member of the Emergency Preparedness, Recovery, and Response Subcommittee, the gentlewoman from my home state of Florida, Ms. Kamek, for an opening statement.